So one of the main things for if you're wanting to manifest and to take it back a notch, to me, manifestation is just taking something from non-physical into physical. So it's a dream, a desire, a hope, and making it real. So it's not just about money or a new computer. It's about those things you have in your mind that you want to create, even if it is more purpose, more calm, meditation, that is manifesting. So taking something from non-physical to physical. So if we want to do that as highly sensitive people, the number one thing that I always teach people, and this is good for everyone, but it's crucial for highly sensitive people, is something I call intentional energy curation. And basically, it's like intentionally creating our experience and our reality and what's around us. And that may seem simple, but a lot of us don't do this because we feel bad and we have obligation and we're busy and we're rushed and we're hungry. And so we don't have these boundaries in place and we're not aware of everything that's coming into our experience.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Carpe, Diem, Living the Podcast. I am your host, Shane and today on this week's episode, we have Talia on the show, and we are back in Canada. We're always in Canada, I feel like, but hey, I'm not complaining. So Talia, thank you so much for coming on, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm a Canadian. I'm a normal person. I'm a mom of three, and I've been through a lot in my life. And as a lot of people do, as we heal, we start to turn that around and look at how we can help other people. So these days, what I do is I'm a manifestation mentor. And what I do basically is help people to change their life and to use the law of attraction to make any changes they want. So it's about, yes, attracting money and love and all that good stuff, but it's also about making that deep change in your life to be more fulfilled, live more in purpose, live whole, in balance, and really just, I believe that we're here to live a certain life. And it's not that everything is specifically predetermined, but there's a life that we're meant to live, a life that we are here to live. And that's one that feels free and joyful, and we're expressive and creative, and we're just really feeling in flow. So what I do with people is I help them to learn and hack the law of attraction so that they can create the life that they're meant for. And it's a lot of fun. So that's just a little bit about me and what I do.
Awesome. And I feel like there's a lot of, you hear the term law of attraction pretty often, but I feel like people still don't really get it. So I love that there's people out there like you that can clarify what all of that means. And especially since you work with empaths, and I know that's another term that I feel like more and more people are learning about it. But if you could tell us basically what is an empath? That way it just clears out all the misinformation out there.
Yeah, definitely. So empaths are highly sensitive beings, and even that has a lot of misunderstanding. A lot of people think highly sensitive just means too emotional, or, you're crying at the kitten commercials or whatever, which could definitely be. Basically, being sensitive is a scale. This is the way that I see it. So there's a scale, and if you think of a linear scale, on one end is narcissist, which is somebody who does not have compassion or caring for anyone else's feelings. They tend to be more self-centered and kind of like, I just want what I want and I don't care who I will step on to get there. That's a narcissist. And then in the middle of the scale is highly sensitive. And these are people that can pick up on the energy in a room. You can sense and feel discomfort, maybe other people's moods, emotions. Sometimes you walk into a room, it's like, wow, something just happened here. That's highly sensitive. We pick up on body language, tone of voice. We pick up on so many things in a room that other people don't. And so that's right in the middle. And so the people listening, you may identify as being highly sensitive. And where it gets into empath is actually when Empaths have the ability, and I'll share more about how I truly believe it's a gift, but they take on other people's emotions physically into their body. That's what makes the difference between a highly sensitive and an empath. So highly sensitive is picking up on the things in a room. You know, they didn't seem okay, and someone else is saying they're fine. You're like, no, something was off. That's highly sensitive, picking up on things. But empath is where you feel it, where you feel sick to your stomach when you've seen something violent, or you can feel someone's ailments, or you're around someone and you physically feel off. You just feel anxious, you feel drained, you feel maybe emotional. It's really where those extra sensitive perceptions get stored in our body. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And like as you were talking about that, I was just envisioning myself as a small little empath child. And the biggest reminder of like what that was like for me were being very highly sensitive and empathetic towards all the energies around me. So I grew up, my mom was a caregiver. And so I was around a lot of elderly, and elderly, of course, they pass away at some point. And even if I didn't know them for very long, like attending a funeral or just knowing that someone had passed away, I could feel it all. Like it would just hit me like a ton of bricks. And so my mom just knew, like she always felt like she had to like protect me in a way, because she knew any little thing that was sad would just like cause like a whole thing. So till this day, it's like, yeah, there's certain things that are not like triggers, but you know, like will set off like the whole sensitive feelings and highly emotional stuff. So yeah, I
Yeah.
totally get what you mean. You can walk into a room and just know. And some people would be like, are you psychic or something? I'm like, no, I can pick it up. Like it's just, you can't even describe it, I feel sometimes when you're in that position.
Yeah. Do you want to know something so cool about that? Is that they've actually proven with real science that highly sensitive people and empaths have a more active neurological system. So, a more active, their brains are actually picking up on stimulus that other people's brains don't pick up on. Like that just, there's something about that for me that resonates so deep because that's how I've always felt. I've always felt too sensitive, too emotional, this. And like, I've had people tell me in my life, you know, don't look too far into that, or you're reading too far into it.
Yeah,
And I'm
you're
like, no,
overreacting. Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, no, to me, it's truth. To me, it's obvious what has happened, whether you're picking up on tension, someone's sickness, their grief, their sadness, also though joy and excitement. You can get really just involved with other people's stuff and their emotions. And that's actually because you have a more active neurological system. So you're picking up on things that for us who are highly sensitive, it seems so obvious. Like you're saying, like, you know, didn't you pick up on this in the room, or when you're around certain people, you're feeling them. It's so obvious to us, to the point where for most of us, it's overwhelming. It's
Yeah.
too much. It's hard to take it all in. To other people, they don't even see it. So there's a sort of scientific answer of what an empath is, what a highly sensitive person is. But then to me, the answer that I like to also add on to it is that you're a magical unicorn. You are picking up on things that other people don't even see. Their brain blocks it out. So when you are seeing someone like a psychic, a medium, someone communicating with, you know, loved ones who have passed, to me, I love that stuff. So to me, I go, that's such a cool gift. You're picking up on what other people can't see. And
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing. It's just the energy in a room. It's just another plane of energy, but you're doing that exact same thing. So not only do I think that it's important to see the uniqueness and to see it as a gift, but I think it's also important to realize that if more people were like this in the world, think of where our world would be. If more people were so deeply compassionate for other people's feelings, really felt other people's pain, had that empathy, especially once we become empowered, which is something I'm going to talk about too, is when we become an empowered empath, we're standing in our gifts, we're standing in our power, we're not getting depleted and drained. And I'm going to talk about how some ways we can do that. But imagine if people in the world, our teachers, our leaders, our mentors, our parents, imagine if they were more sensitive, were more compassionate, were more empathetic. Think of what the world would be. So when we start to feel depleted or feel like I'm too sensitive, I'm overly emotional, I'm, you know, crowds are too intense and gatherings are too intense, remember that it's because you have an absolute gift, and there's a way to bring it into balance for you to create the life that you want and have the life that you want. But first and foremost, it is such a gift, and it's something that the world needs more of. So you cannot retreat into hiding. Just learn how to use these gifts. We need you.
Oh no, thank you for highlighting that, because I remember like even growing up as a child, like my mom like just loved throwing like family parties and big gatherings, and I swear I could not stand them at all. Like I would get easily overwhelmed if it was too loud. I'm just like, I can't even think right now. Like there's just too much. And as an adult, like years later, I was wearing a Fitbit once, and she had a gathering, and it had been a long time since I attended one of those, and I watched my heart rate increase. Like it was like near 100, and I was just in a room full of people. Like I wasn't, nothing was going on. I was not working out. I wasn't even talking. Like I was just there. And I was like, holy moly. I'm like, I really do just like absorb all of this, and I don't know what to do. And so for years, I always felt like I had to find ways to protect my energy, because around certain people, you do feel really drained. And I've always been one of those people with my friends where they come to me, they come to me for advice and, vent and all of that, which is great. But there's times where I'm like, oh, I don't have the capacity, or like the situation is just so much where I'm like, I literally feel like my energy is being pulled, so I can't. So I love that you help people find the balance they need so they don't feel that depleted feeling like you mentioned, because yeah, that's definitely happened to me more times than I can count. So
Yeah, well, that's the life of us, right? It's not even like it just happens to you sometimes. It's like it's how we operate. It's hard to go through the world sometimes, and to be even in, the grocery store and, Christmas shopping, or
yeah,
even things that we really enjoy, like a concert or a festival or a tour when we're on vacation or something. Being around a lot of people can be very depleted. So if the people listening are identifying with this and wondering, more if they're an empath, that is something that is very common, is to get depleted, be prone to overwhelm, and that can easily be anxiety as well. Some more symptoms of, I kind of call them symptoms, although I don't even think that's the right word, but symptoms of being disempowered. And that doesn't come with judgment. It just means like we're out of our center. Is we also experience a lot of emotions flooding in, a lot of emotions that sometimes they don't even feel like they're ours. It's like sometimes I'll almost be shaking where I feel very anxious, but when I search my brain, I'm like, nothing's going on. I
yeah,
wasn't thinking about anything stressful. It just overcame me. And that's another big symptom of being an empath. And getting depleted, a lot of times we serve others to the point of depletion. That's really common, and that's because we care so deeply.
being
And
moms.
yeah, totally. Yep. And we feel other people's pain, and we want to do anything we can to save them from that. And so we will serve to almost our demise,
Yeah.
because we're loving and caring, but in the end we're depleted and going like, where's my rest time? But
Right, right.
yeah.
No, I totally get that. Like everything you're saying, it's like you literally know me, because it's just like watching myself, like as I grow up, I'm like, man, this like that's why like just learning what an empath was. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. It's just so it's part of, like I mentioned earlier, the self-discovery. And I have to ask this because I don't know if there's even an answer for this, but can animals sense when they're around an empath?
Ooh, yes. The short answer is yes. Animals are like the way that I see it anyways, and everything that I've learned and intuitively been led to, they're like nature, trees, they're source, they're pure source, because they don't have this human ego, they don't have our human brain. So they're just little beings of light. And so anyone that is on that same level as them and sort of entangled in the energy, can feel the energy, they will attract to. Also, generally babies or young children, because they kind of see, you get me, even if you don't know that you're doing that. They definitely are attracted to you. And I also believe too, animals like our pets, humans pets, so cats, dogs, whatever, they're really here to help us with our excess energy. So they actually act like little energy sponges that can take away our excess energy when we are feeling overwhelmed and anxious. And they don't like take it on or internalize it. It's not going to make them sick. They just transmute it and they're good to go. So it's actually, if pets are drawn to you, or if you are really drawn to having a pet or your own pet, use them as a way to actually kind of sop up the excess energy that we take on in a day being highly sensitive.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Because the reason why I asked that is because throughout my whole life. Like whether it was like a stray animal or a hurt animal, they would find their way to me. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, what am I going to do? I'm not just going to let this dog like be lost. You know, like I would always, I would stop whatever it was that I was doing or where I was going to help this poor animal. Like this has been like forever. The first memory I have is like when I helped these baby birds because they had fallen out of their nest and I couldn't find their mom. Maybe I was about 7 or 8. And yeah, I just basically took care of it. Don't know how I knew how to take care of it, but then eventually their mom came and then they like did their thing. And then just growing up, you know, stray dogs, stray cats, and either I would find them their original homes, rehome them, or I would end up adopting. So I just didn't know if there was like a correlation between the two, but that's really cool that yeah, they do sense that about a person.
Yeah. And I think it's a two-way street too. Like you attract them and they're attracting you at the same time because it, you know, if you know law of attraction, like attracts like, it's never a one-way street. It's not like money is attracted to you or you're attracted to it. It's a both-way thing. And so with animals too, it's like, it's almost like they scan and they find their match. Like she will help me. And you're also open and available for that. You're taking the time to try to find them homes and take them in and send them love. And so, yeah, they definitely feel that.
Yeah, like it just makes me laugh because there was a time where it was like 3 animals in a month. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, where are all these animals so lost? And this is when I was living in Texas, but it was great. Like I had no complaints. I'm like, if I could own all of them, I would. So I have this joke that one day I'm gonna have a farm so I can have like 20 dogs just running free in a big area.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's awesome. Have you seen the movie Ace Ventura, like back in the day?
I've seen bits of it, but to be honest, I don't
Okay.
remember the full movie in its completion or anything.
Okay. There's just one scene with Jim Carrey and he like opens his arms and he's like, whoa, and he's got all these animals, like all the birds, all the cats, all the dogs. There's, you know, I just pictured you just open arms with all these animals everywhere.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna have to find that scene on YouTube or something. That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I know because like my mom, she'll ask me, she's like, I didn't raise you with pets. She was like, I don't know why you're so into dogs and all this. I'm like, I've just, as soon as I was out on my own as an adult, I'm like, I'm gonna have an animal. Like, I'm gonna have a pet, and haven't looked back since. I have 2 now. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it could be some past life stuff too, which is a whole other thing, but that's
love
something that I'm picking up on, just that innate draw to something that doesn't have any logical answer, especially when someone's really young, when they're really good at something, really drawn to something, that's often an indication of a past life experience that you chose to bring forward into this world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Past life stuff. Oh man, that's another topic. But yeah,
Yeah.
I learned of some of my past lives, but yeah, they haven't had to do with, oh, one of them did have to do with animals. It was somewhere where it was like Scotland or something. And I was a daughter of like a sheep herder's, yeah, daughter of someone who's a sheep herder. And you know, the funny thing is my oldest dog, she's half border collie. And you know, border collies are sheep herding dogs. So I'm like, how cool that my first dog happened to be that breed. And it's like it ties. So I just love talking about that stuff. It's so fascinating.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
So law of attraction. Okay, I guess okay, so one fun question. What's one example of how you use law of attraction in your life and saw results?
That's a good question. Well, one it's funny just launching into the middle of a story. One time this was about 2 years ago, I was working in a group coaching program. And at the point, I was just building my business at that point, and the coach was wanting to gather us together in New York, and we were all going to fly, which seems so random now because of COVID. It seems like it was so long ago that we would fly and gather. But you know, we were all going to meet in New York, and I just didn't have the money for it, but I really felt like it was important to me. I really wanted to experience that. And my highest self, that version of me, travels. She meets her coaches. She, you know, so I knew it was something I really needed to do. And I didn't have the money, but I kept saying I'm doing it. And, you know, in our group chat, yeah, I'm coming, no problem. And something that's really important with law of attraction is it's not just what you think of. It's not just what you say, you know, I'm a millionaire or I'm going to go to New York. It's who you're being. So I really was embodying that me who was going to be there. And, you know, Canadian girl from Vancouver Island flying by myself to New York. It's like, that really takes some big girl pants. So I was picturing that and picturing traveling and doing a lot of the manifestation practices that I do because I really wanted to go. And everyone was, you know, booking their tickets, and we were going in like a week, and I still didn't have the money, but I just kept holding that faith and doing these practices, and truly above and beyond everything, it was embodying that me that was going and being her. And then out of nowhere, it was about 3 days before we were going to go. And I even started packing my bag, and my husband's going like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm going, you know, I'm packing my bag. I'm like, that's it. I'm going. I was talking to who I was going to room up with and all this stuff. And out of nowhere, my accountant phoned me, and okay, so this is a little bit of backstory. I hadn't done my taxes in about 2 years. And finally I'd been like, okay, I need to do my taxes. This is ridiculous. I'm an adult. Come on. And so I had done them months previous. And so a couple days before we were supposed to go, my accountant phoned and said, just so you know, you're getting a massive refund because in Canada, there's child tax benefit, there's climate tax benefit, there's all this stuff, GST checks, and there's all these extra little things when you do your taxes. And I hadn't done them for a few years. So I'm not even kidding. She said $44,000 is coming to you. And I was like,
Stop.
what? And she's like, combined with because I was paying higher income tax because I had been at a job, but then I'd left the job, started my own business, but I was still paying the taxes. And however it worked out, massive refund, all these benefits. And she said, it's going to be deposited into your account tomorrow. And I was like, what? And so the next day, I'm not even kidding, it was $44,000, $44,016. And it was deposited into my account. And I'm like, I'm going to New York. And so obviously I booked the trip. It was so crazy. But then after I booked the trip, all these synchronicities started happening because I was in alignment and I had, you know, gotten my energy there to call it in. So first of all, I got bumped up to first class. I've never been in first class. And when I got my ticket, it said row 1. And I said to the ticket lady, I was like, oh, that's cool, row 1. I didn't even realize what that meant. And she kind of smiles and she said, do you realize that's full first class? I was like, no, why? And she's like, don't ask questions, I don't know. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I'm in first class, I'm like sipping champagne on the runway, they're giving me snacks, whatever, right? Living my best life. And then got to New York and roomed up with this amazing girl who turned into an incredible friend. And we were chatting on the first night and somehow birthdays came up and we have the same birthday, which is so random. But it was all of these synchronicities that just kept happening. And the trip was incredible. The first time I'd ever flown to meet a mentor and do like an in-person workshop with my coach. And it was just such a big moment for me. It was like me really stepping into that person. But the way that the money came was just so insane. I had no idea. I even thought I would probably end up owing. I don't know. Like I hadn't done my taxes in a few years, you know?
Right,
So
right.
yeah, it was crazy. That's probably the most notable manifestation story that just, it came out of the blue. And it had been months since I had done my taxes, but it took a while to go through the back stuff. And I believe and know that it's because I took the time to align my energy that it was able to pop through exactly when I needed it, like down to the day, you know,
Right.
time was ticking. So that's a pretty crazy story.
I love that story because that just shows that if you're doing the inner work, you're staying consistent, you know you're putting out the right vibe, you're in the right frequency, and then things just I say like it magically happens, but it's like no, you put in the effort to place yourself there. So that just shows that it all pays off.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also that everything is working on purpose. So let's look at the fact that I hadn't done my taxes in a few years. That's not something I would talk about normally or share with people. There's even shame and like, come on, I'm an adult. I'm in my 30s. Get your stuff together. Do your taxes, right? Like it's not even something that we would say is good. But look how it panned out in the long run, right? And now also because I did that, like a kid, I learned, and now I'm, you know, the first one doing my taxes. So it's like everything is working for you. Even when you think you're messing up or screwing up, you don't have it together, like remembering that there's a bigger picture going on. And I was kind of like forced saving for a few years so that it could all come through when I needed it. And if I look back, there was no wrong there. There was no bad. I have no shame about it because look how it worked out. Right. So I think that's important to remember too, is you're not messing it up. And when you do that inner work, all of your other work you've done will just kind of pop through and be able to manifest in front of you.
Right. That's such a powerful story and just shows that, yeah, like the universe, it'll all come together in the way that it's supposed to. And that's how I feel too. Like, especially if like things didn't work out in the timing I wanted, or if it didn't work out with, this friendship or this relationship, I'm like, okay. And it can take some time until you can actually look back and be like, oh, okay, now I understand why that happened. Because I do that a lot where I kind of just, not that I'm like trying to change anything, but it's just kind of cool to kind of like connect the dots. And I'm like, okay, the result ended up being better than I expected, or I'm so glad it happened now versus earlier, because it got me better results. So I think that that's amazing. And I think it's really cool about the whole like same birthday thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that reminds me of, yeah, I have a friend that I recently reconnected with, and I ended up coming back on their birthday. And we're just like, how funny, like that I moved back to my hometown on the day of that person's birthday. And I was just like, So it's just kind of funny how things work and just see like where it'll lead. So
Yeah, the synchronicities. And
yeah,
I think it's neat how you just, if I can touch on the divine time, or sorry, the things not happening in the time that you want.
yeah,
And sometimes I've spent time going like, okay, so there's divine timing, like when it's supposed to happen. But then there's the like people that say, if you want it bad enough, you can manifest anything now, right? And how do those interact? And what I've really come to find is that when you ask for something, and whether it's me going to New York or someone wants to lose weight or find a mate or have a job change or something, when you ask for it, the universe goes into action, making it happen. But when we say, like, I want to manifest $5,000 by December 31st, I truly believe that the universe does everything it can to make that happen for you. But usually there's things that are sort of in your way, like mindset stuff, the inner work stuff that you're talking about. So we get all bent out of shape, like, oh, it didn't walk into my experience by December 31st. But along the way, from now until that date you set, you are offered opportunities to bust through limits, to change your mindset, which actually could allow it to come in by that date or around that time. But we get so fixated on how it's going to show up and that it needs to show up and that it's not showing up. And that sort of takes away the uncovering of what actually would have allowed it to come, if that makes sense. So
totally.
like we place a goal and then we might feel really crappy the next day. We might have these limiting beliefs, but we're not even paying attention to like, that could be my next step. If I bust through this, that could actually be what allows me to manifest the money. Instead, we just look at how's the money going to come and where's the job going to come and how, so we almost overlook the things that are actually in our way. I don't know if that makes sense, but I try to observe that because manifestation is a little bit complicated. It's
Right.
simple, but there's lots of layers because humans are complicated. I think that's more what it is.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. That reminds me of all the mindset and like energy alignment sessions that I've done with the business academy I'm in. And so that's why I take those things so seriously because I'm like, I will be damned if my own limiting beliefs prevented me from getting, hitting a goal, or I didn't get the certain amount of money I wanted. Like, I just refuse to be that one. So that's why I always tell people like it's a lot of work, but in the best way to get the results you want. And that's why I think focusing, doing the inner work, just kind of like a muscle, right? You just got to keep working at it, and then it becomes just normal to you. It's part of your occasional practice, or daily practice. So I think that is a really important thing to highlight, that yeah, if it doesn't manifest in the way you want, well, maybe yes, there were things holding you back in that duration. So um
Yeah,
do
definitely. And for us highly sensitive people and us empaths, manifestation is a little bit of a different game. So, one thing that it's really important to recognize if you identify as being highly sensitive or empathic is that because you're picking up on so many things, generally our energy is sort of at the mercy of the world around us. And that's kind of one of the first things that needs to change. It's like a toxic person comes in front of us, or negative or drama, we're all thrown off, or someone's grief or sadness, and then we're feeling guilty or we're feeling anxious. And so a lot of people say, do the vision boards, do the journaling. And it's like, great, all those things are amazing and will get you there. But when you're highly sensitive, there's an energetic piece that needs to happen that's a little bit different than everyone else, because we walk into a store and we're thrown off by all the people. And then, maybe a tone in our mom's voice implies something. And all of a sudden we're perceiving our life as a failure. And what did she mean by that? And why does she always, it's like we are so sensitive, right? We tend to take things personally, deplete ourselves, as we talked about. So one of the main things for if you're wanting to manifest, and to take it back a notch, to me, manifestation is just taking something from non-physical into physical. So it's a dream, a desire, a hope, and making it real. So it's not just about money or a new computer. It's about those things you have in your mind that you want to create, even if it is more purpose, more calm, meditation. That is manifesting. So taking something from non-physical to physical. So if we want to do that as highly sensitive people, the number one thing that I always teach people, and this is good for everyone, but it's crucial for highly sensitive people, is something I call intentional energy curation. And basically it's like intentionally creating our experience and our reality and what's around us. And that may seem simple, but a lot of us don't do this because we feel bad and we have obligation and we're busy and we're rushed and we're hungry. And so we don't have these boundaries in place, and we're not aware of everything that's coming into our experience. And so it's really important to do the clearing up in your life as a sensitive person. There's sort of the first place I go with people is to accept and honor, I am sensitive. And then recognizing that if toxic people are around, violence, people that don't make me feel good, even comparison on social media, whatever, I will take it on and it will throw me off. So we can change anything, yes, but we are also built a certain way. So just kind of acknowledging when I'm around toxic people, when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm in crowds, it will throw me off. And of course, there's protection things we can do, grounding and all of that, which is so important. I'll touch a little bit on that. But recognizing that you are sensitive to your environment is like owning that. That's the truth. Right. And then you start being aware of like, okay, so what do I want to create in the space around me? What TV shows now am I actually going to watch? What podcasts am I going to listen to? What do I want my home to be like? Because you pick up on everything around you. It's time to start decluttering the things that bring you down, the people that are toxic, the violence in shows, like I said, social media accounts that just cause comparison. They just always cause you to feel crappy because you always feel like you're comparing yourself to these people. And other things, right? The music you listen to, everything. We have to start really intentionally creating our experience, because a lot of people that are sensitive don't realize that that's half of the stuff that's throwing them off. It's the clutter in their house. It's the violence on TV. It's looking at your news apps and too much politics, too much negativity, whatever it is. And we're depleted all the time. So intentional energy curation, in like intentionally creating your experience around you is so important, and kind of just has to be number one if you want to make change and create that life that you're meant for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because I know, like, as you get older and you really start to understand like who you are and what does make you feel depleted, what gives you energy. And luckily I've always been very anti-clutter. I'm so organized. And so at least I had that out of the way. But the issue is when, say, like for me, when my son, he first became a toddler, man, the clutter from the toys and everything, that was really hard for me to overcome, as far as not letting it make me feel like, oh, because it's like you go from not having children and then you have a child and you're used to having it, a certain way, as far as like, yeah, not having the cluttering everywhere. So I had to learn to just like find ways to just like you said, acknowledge like, yes, this is going to make me feel this, but how are we going to work through it? The way I've been able to handle it is I've taught my son how to clean up. So now he's good at cleaning up his toys at the end of the day and throwing away his trash and things like that. So finding little tips and tricks just to help bring down the emotions, it definitely
Yeah.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah. And with clutter, a lot of people that are highly sensitive, when I bring this up, they're like, yeah, I always feel so amazing when I declutter, or yeah, clutter drives me nuts. And some people are already organized and some people aren't, and they don't realize that it's overwhelming you. Because again, if you take it back to how our brain works, we pick up on more in a room than other people do, which means we feel our space. So we feel the things out of place, and we
Yeah.
feel the trash can that's not emptied, and we feel the like disheveled things everywhere in yesterday's plate from food, and we feel it, and we actually kind of perceive it as like a failure, a mess, chaos, and it makes us feel drained. So simple decluttering, and also in this intentional energy curation, it's like creating a space that feels really good. So for me, on my desk right now, I have plants, I have my card decks, I have candles, I have crystals, all the woo woo stuff,
Yeah.
even my favorite pens in a pen holder. Like I have everything makes me feel good. And so a lot of people in their home, they just have a bunch of stuff. So
Right.
whether it's actual clutter or it just doesn't carry energy, it doesn't carry anything great, it's just stuff. It's time to start getting rid of that stuff so you can live with more intentional things that make you feel good. For highly sensitive people, also natural elements really, really ground us. So wood and pottery and plants and sort of things made of real life, real nature, right? As I say, rocks, stones, whatever, wood, all that kind of stuff makes us feel really grounded. So if it calls to you, creating a space that does have plants and does have crystals or things that make you feel good, that is so important, because we feel the space. We look around a room and we feel almost like we're in a crowd, but it's like we're in a crowd of stuff, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because like growing up with my mom, like, because she's the queen of just has a bunch of stuff, like just, and it's like it's too much. That's why, like for me, that's why I was just so excited when I grew up, and I was like, when I have my own space, it's gonna be very like there's this going to be a very certain way to this, and even till this day, it's that way where it's very intentional. Like I don't just have things, like it has a purpose. And I like to keep it very minimalistic, especially applying the Marie Kondo method. Like that really helped, because I totally understand the aspect of, how do these things make you feel? And like if that thing just makes you annoyed, well then you got to get rid of it. Like there's just no reason to have it there. So like for me, you can see in the back, I have my essential oils, and every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, you bring me peace of mind. So it's like I love having that there. This hedgehog is just because I love hedgehogs. So like every time I see it or I'm on camera, I'm like, oh, it's just like me in an animal form. So
Yeah,
things like
nice.
that. Yeah. And I love that you highlighted, because I feel like no people that aren't organized or aren't empaths, they just don't get it, where it's like you can't just have everything everywhere and not feel overwhelmed. Like I could look at 5 different things in a room. If it's just mess, I'm like, oh, like I can't do this. Like it has to be put away somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, well, all of our things do carry meaning, and we get that. And most people, even if an empath or highly sensitive person's listening and hasn't yet seen that, hearing this, they're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is, you can feel that everything has a meaning. And there's something actually in feng shui that really stuck with me that I think really applies to this. And they say not to have anything broken or anything half done. And so of course, anything broken, right? It just reminds you, it carries the energy of broken, which is not fun. Either repurpose it or get rid of it, but also like half done projects, half painted paintings, those things that you say like, oh, I'll come back to that, but then you don't. Let's not make you wrong and bad for that. Just get rid of it or finish it, either one. But, and I'll notice that I'll go through spurts where I'm painting more and stuff. And there'll be this painting that like, I'm going to finish one day. And it's like a year later. And every time I see it, it just reminds me of what I haven't done. And so that's another thing when we're talking about your space, is like not keeping broken stuff unless you can, it's really meaningful and you can repurpose it or something, and not half done stuff. And also anything that carries a memory. A lot of times we want to keep something because we should keep it, or our grandma gave it to us and we have these things about it. And sometimes we even have things like a piece of art that was from a previous relationship, or a gift from someone you're not even friends with anymore. And when you look at it, it makes you feel feel guilty or weird. It's
Yeah.
time to get rid of that stuff because everything has a story. And like you said, you want to feel good with the stuff around you.
Yeah, I have to admit, I do have things in general from like, well, because I'm very sentimental. So I have things from literally preschool till now. And but it's all in one like memory tote that I have, and it's in my garage. So like it's not like in my space. So I'm not like picking up on the energy or reminding myself of it. It's like out of sight, out of mind. I'm a big believer in that. But at
Right.
least I know that when I want to go down memory lane, I have access to it. So
Yeah. And I think sentimental is good because the memory associated is good, right? I'm not saying get rid of all your grandma stuff or all your stuff,
yeah,
but the things around you that do create the memory of something negative or in the past, you don't have to hold on to that anymore.
right.
Yeah. Another part that I wanted to touch on with this intentional energy curation is getting inspired. So this is something that for empaths and highly sensitive people will change your life. And people listening to this podcast, you're probably already on that train, but making an intention to get inspired. And it sounds funny at first, kind of, or maybe not, but we are alone in our own heads. Sensitive people have a very rich inner world. So we're always thinking and contemplating and analyzing and often feeling bad about ourselves or guilty. And there's a lot of those kind of emotions mixed in unless you've done a lot of work. But even so, we're very prone to perceiving failure in ourselves and feeling things deeply. So when you choose to get inspired, it takes you out of your own head and into the world of spirit, inspired, which is in spirit. So I'm a huge believer in getting help, getting mentored, getting inspired, filling your world with inspiring podcasts, with books, with mentors, with group programs or retreats or meditations or whatever you need to get inspired. There's not one way for everyone. It's going to be different. And usually it's a mix of all the things, right? But watching how your energy changes because you feel other people and you feel the energy in a room when you're hearing someone speak and they're resonating so deeply or it's resonating so deeply, it moves you and that can move you into action. That can shift your energy. So often as highly sensitive people, we have felt very alone in the world. Empaths feel like they don't quite belong. It feels like everyone else is going so fast paced and they've all got it together and I'm just struggling to process my emotions over here. So a lot of times we're used to being lone wolves and I can like be the first one to put my hand up, be like, I got this. I don't need anyone's help. Right.
Yep,
But
yep.
when I opened up to getting inspired and getting helped and having other people help me on my journey, whether it was one way, like a podcast, or it was a two-way thing, like a coach or a mentor, it changed everything because as I mentioned, we're alone in our heads and we can only see what we think is possible is only a mixture of the things we've experienced. And so it's easy for us to be like, I'm not cut out for that, or that would never happen to me, or I would never be able to go live, or I would never be able to start a business or whatever. But when we're around other people and they're sharing their story and they're inspiring telling us what they've overcome and how they did it and that it's possible, it lights something up within us that is really healing because we have felt so alone, but it also just gives us that support to move forward. So I noticed such transformation with those highly sensitive people because they're just finally getting help, getting support, and allowing themselves to get out of their own mind and look at what might be possible for them. So it's in this whole intentionally creating your experience, I cannot rave enough about fill your space with inspiring stuff. Like have the quotes, have the sticky notes, have the tracks you play, have the podcast, have the books, have the mentors, do it all as much as you can or as much as you're pulled to. And it will dramatically change your life because you will start to take on those people's energies. Even just listening to a podcast, it shifts you. And so that's one way to really move the needle forward in your own life. Being highly sensitive is like latch on to other people's inspiring energy because it will help you. It's an amazing way to do it.
Yeah, it just feels like fuel. You're just like, oh, okay, something that fills me up, fills my cup. So that's wonderful. And it's an everyday practice for me where I'm just like finding new ways to tweak and add to my space, take out of my space. I mean, decluttering, like you said, like it feels great to people, to empaths especially. And that's why I love doing a big donation overhaul, or when it's like I still like give clothes to my sister. Like she's still, even though we're older now, I'm like, dude, like if I don't, this is just, we've been doing this since we were kids. Like if I don't wear this dress anymore, you can have it, whatever. So it just feels good to be able to like energetically get that out. But yeah, I feel like we could chat forever on this stuff. And I love feeling seen when it comes to just like kind of spirituality and energy. And so I just love connecting with people like you. And it just, at least we know there's more of us out there and we don't feel so lone wolf like.
Yeah, and there's so many people, especially right now, we're going through an awakening. We have been for a little bit, but we're in this point where people's eyes are being opened all the time, and us sensitive people, light workers, people that are really wanting to heal and help others, we're coming out of the woodworks, because it used to be literally burned at the stake for being this type of person,
Yeah.
being intuitive, being sensitive, but we've moved so far that now it's starting to be more embraced and at least more accepted, more known. And we're just on the cusp of that. But I really do recommend, if you're highly sensitive and you're wanting to change your life, wanting to manifest, is to recognize that you're not alone and connect with other like-minded people. Even if it's just other friends, start talking about it. Start talking about what highly sensitive is, and gather with other people, because it is so true. We have such a rich inner world, and it can feel like we're just so alone sometimes.
Right, right. And I mean, now with social media and everything, there's absolutely no reason why you should be in your own bubble. Like, there's so many ways to reach out and connect with other people, like we do on podcasts. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
tell our listeners where they connect with you, where they can connect with you online, and even just to work with you in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm most active on Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram. I have a Pinterest, but really Facebook and Instagram are more the social media ones. And it's at Talia Joy Manifestation. And I'll send that to you if you want to put it in the show notes. But at Talia Joy Manifestation. And also my website is taliajoymanifestation.com. So I'm all over the internets.
Right. And plus you have your own podcast too. So if they want to take a listen on that
Yeah.
as well, I'm assuming you're on Spotify, all the things.
Yeah, on all the things. It's called the Awakening Her podcast. And we talk about all things law of attraction, stepping into the life you're meant for. I'm doing more and more interviews lately with really cool people. So it's really fun. It's an expanding place to be, that's for sure.
Awesome. And that's just a great example of just being able to surround yourself around like-minded people and people that do bring joy. So that's wonderful. But thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on to the show today. And just like all of our other guests, she will be in our Podcast Insiders group if you want to just come say hi. So yeah, we will catch you all next time. And thank you all again for listening.